Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show today who is really going to give us some tactical capabilities into doing something that we all need to do, especially now more than ever. Tamara Ghandour was born in Ramat Gan, Israel, and moved to Berkeley, California when she was 5. Tamara and her family moved every 4 years, so she grew up all over the Bay Area. She is very close to her younger sister by 4 years, Naomi, and her parents, Adi and Anna. Yes, they still take family vacations together and talk on the phone almost daily. As a child, Tamara was always questioning and breaking the rules. In school, if the teacher told her in the class that she always had to write her name at the right side of the top of the paper, she'd put it on the left. Long lines are just a reason to find another way in the door. Her parents still joke about the fact that Tamara knows there are rules out there, but doesn't believe they apply to her. That innate questioning of the rules is part of the reason she is successful, because she almost always finds an alternate way around the obstacles she faces and doesn't buy into the bureaucracy that slows innovation and progress. Tamara started her career in New York City in advertising on the infamous Madison Avenue. From there, she went into brand strategy and innovation, where she built new products and services for Fortune 500 companies ranging from Procter & Gamble to IBM. After giving people innovative ideas for almost 20 years, Tamara realized the real impact isn't in giving innovation, but in unlocking innovation inside them. That is why she founded LaunchStreet and the Innovation Quotient Edge Assessment, pioneering a human-centered innovation method. She's a keynote speaker, podcaster, and author of Innovation is Everybody's Business: How to Ignite, Scale, and Sustain Innovation for Competitive Edge. Tamara's goal and legacy is to change the narrative around innovation from being siloed to the select magical few to it being for everyone. Her mission is to unleash 1 million plus innovators into the world, solving our biggest challenges, unearthing opportunities, and elevating happiness globally. Tamara lives in Denver, Colorado, with her 2 crazy and amazing boys, Liam and Ari, and her 100-pound mastiff, Zoe. Tamara Ghandour, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am so ready. Today is the perfect day to be having this conversation.
Most definitely. And I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Yeah. Well, do you want a personal or professional or both?
Both.
Okay. So I'll give you the personal first because it's in the background, whether I like it or not, because we're all working from home right now. And my little nook is by my other area. But I have a huge passion for fitness, not just because I'm one of those crazy fit nuts. I love CrossFit. I love Peloton. That's on my back. But also because it helps keep me sane and keeps the energy going and gives me, I think, helps me have the energy I need to do all the things I want to do. And that kind of leads to my next passion, my big passion in the work, which is really unlocking human potential. So we all have this ability to innovate, but we have been trained out of or taught not to innovate, that it's not for us. And our work and research over dozens of years has shown the opposite to be true. So I'm really passionate about getting out there and helping people realize that potential.
Well, and with that, you talk about a lot of myths and disinformation about creative thinking, which is really that foundational element to innovation and innovation in our society. And a lot of people will say, well, I'm just not creative, right? We know that's just not true.
I get that all the time.
Yes. But if you could, please share with the Fast Leader Legion some of the common myths that we must bust.
Yeah. So I call them the traps of certainty, because they're the things that we have bought into, but are actually completely not only untrue, but they have a detrimental side effect in that they sabotage our own ability to innovate as individuals, as leaders, and as teams. So the first one is, and you kind of alluded to it, it's for certain people. And Jim, you know that guy, right? It's the guy with the blue streak in his hair and the funky glasses. And like, he's the innovative one, but not me. I just do my job or, look at software all day. And that's totally untrue. And I think in doing that, we limit our own ability because we abdicate that to somebody else. So that's the first one. The second one is it's for certain times only. And that time is usually a 3 p.m. brainstorm with a scented marker and a blank easel pad. And have you been in those meetings and someone warms you up with that horrible question of like, if you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would it be? And then you're supposed to launch into ideas, right? And the reality is like, that's great to get together. But the best innovation happens when we're actually doing the work and our sleeves are rolled up and we're in it. It's actually not in the conference room. And don't get me wrong, I love scented markers. They're so much fun. I love them at every workshop that we do. But that's not the only time innovation happens. The third one is that it's for certain segments, meaning it's the R&D team, the marketing team, right? Because they're the ones who have permission to innovate, but not for the rest of us. And the fourth myth is it's certain outcomes, meaning it's like, it has to be the latest and greatest disruptive technology and breakthrough thing to be considered innovative or innovation. And I will tell you that time and time again, what I am constantly in awe of is the clients who I work with who are none of the above, right? They're not the innovation team. They are not putting out something like wildly disruptive into the marketplace. But the innovation they create and what they unlock in themselves is way more powerful and has just as much impact on business. So when you think about those traps of certainty, I think they matter because number one, we squelch our own ability to innovate. And number two, we then accidentally set up cultures that don't allow others to innovate. So whether we're frontline staff or leaders, we accidentally create this environment that actually doesn't support us.
Well, and so ultimately what you're talking about here, and this goes back to what I was reading in your bio, is that all of us have the opportunity and we need to be very intentional about improving our IQE. Mm-hmm. So please share with us what IQE is and what that entails.
Yeah. And can I give you a little bit of science so kind of it makes sense of how it all works together? So over 25 years, we dug into the neuroscience, behavioral psychology, like all of that behind it, as well as our work and experience to understand how we as humans innovate. And it started for a lot of reasons. And interestingly enough, one of the reasons is because someone came up to me after a conference where I was speaking and said, God, Tamara, that's all great what you shared that Southwest Airlines does this and Google does that, right? But what am I supposed to do with that? And in my head, I'm thinking, well, you're innovative, right? So that's what you do. But it was in that moment that I realized, oh, wait a minute, we need a test, an assessment that helps us actually see how we innovate in real life. So I used to believe, like everybody else, that, in order to be innovative, you had to step outside your comfort zone and dare to be fearless, right? That's what made you innovative. And I used to think it was like this left or right brain thing. So either I was, in the zone and being innovative and that was a cool task, or I was doing my to-do list, but the two shall not meet. And what research came to help me understand was that I was totally wrong. So basically, the awesome part is we all have the structures of innovation in our brain. And in fact, the structures for intelligence and innovation are not the same. And that's awesome for people like me who are not book smart because one doesn't rely on the other. So intelligence is superhighways in your brain. Innovation is loose side roads across your brain. And the beauty is we all have it. But as you alluded to in the intro, a lot of us have been trained out of using it. And the brain actually works like a muscle while it's not technically one. So the more you use it, the more intentional you are, the stronger it gets. So the real difference between someone who's innovative and wouldn't consider themselves innovative isn't truly if they're innovative or not, it is how much they're using it. So what we came to realize in all this research is that it's not if, it's how. Being innovative is universal. We all do it. However, how we do it is unique to each of us. And there's actually 9 styles of innovation. And we call them triggers actually because they unlock and activate that part in your brain. And all of us have this unique, really cool combination of power triggers, 2 power triggers, and a dormant trigger. And our 2 power triggers, if we tap into that intentionally, That's our wellspring of innovation. That's where we provide tremendous value and have a stronger voice in the world. That's where we find those innovative solutions. And I think what's really exciting about that finding and that research is we can all do it, right? All of us have it. We just got to figure out which ones are right for us. So we're actually doing it in a way that works for us. And when we unlock it, we can apply it to anything. So we don't need to wait for the 3 p.m. brainstorm or that super sticky challenge. You can apply that innovative mindset to everything.
Well, and as you're talking, I start thinking about, and why we're talking about this, the need that at all levels, like you even say, it's everybody's business, at all levels, frontline all the way up to the top, is that all of us need to improve our skills and abilities in this. And there's, creating that culture is an important part, like you had talked about, but really being very intentional about the overall skill development and building, those side roads, paving those side roads to have everybody use them. But, you often talk about, really how all of these work in concert with one another. Because oftentimes I say, okay, if we're talking about collaborative, experimental, fluid, futuristic, imaginative, acquisitive, instinctual, risk-taking, and tweaker, which are the 9, I'll say, hey, which ones are most important? But really, you talk about a wheel of innovation. So explain that.
Yeah, so let me back up for 1 second before we get to the wheel, and then I'll explain all of that. So let me just say, because you made a really important point when you said that it's about the skill development, the culture matters, but actually it's starting with the skill. So what we've seen, I think you've seen in your work too, from our kind of pre-conversation, is that people-first innovation is how you actually scale, ignite, and sustain innovation. We get a lot of calls from clients who say, so we just spent a lot of time and money implementing the latest innovation process tool, right? Fill in the blank, whatever it is. Doesn't even matter which one it is. And they're good. It's not that they're not good. But by the time they call me, they're frustrated because their people aren't doing it. And they're not doing it for 2 reasons. One is square peg, round hole. That process may or may not work for them. Or they haven't found the tool in the process that does. But the other thing is, if your people don't believe that they're innovative, why are they going to use your innovative tool? It's just initiative fatigue. It's like another process I have to follow. And when we do these innovation audits, we find that with teams in the front lines who go, well, they mandated this, we do this new process, and now I'm like, I got another box to check. Are you kidding me? Like, is that what you find too? It's so frustrating.
Most definitely. Yeah. Because, well, that's the whole, there's been a whole lot of research as far as change and what changed works. And anytime it's, that top down, like you're talking about, you're doomed.
Oh, so doomed. And the reality is we should be investing in the skills of our people. The culture and the process, if you understand how your people innovate, and more importantly, they understand it, the culture and the process will actually come out of it more naturally. And I think the key is, right, so I'm an experiential risk taker. So let's kind of loop over to the wheel. So that's my 2 power triggers. And my dormant is collaborative. So what that means for me is the way I innovate, the risk taker in me, I innovate in the uncomfortable. I need to leap and be in that place. And when I am, I thrive. Like, not everybody does. But for me, that leaping really works, right? I am really good at being in that unknown place. And because of that, I tend to drive bold innovation. I tend to be able to move forward where other people get stuck. The experiential innovator in me is all about innovation in motion. So I have to get it out of my head and onto paper. The reason that matters, to go to the wheel, is if I understand that about me, and Jimmy, you understand that you actually are an instinctual tweaker. So you're all about connecting dots in new and different ways and kind of circuitous patterns. And the tweaker is all about editing and evolving. We actually together create stronger innovation for a couple reasons. One is you and I know how to leverage each other. I understand you, you understand me. So I'm not thinking, and I've made this mistake, by the way, I'm not thinking, God, why doesn't Jim just freaking leap and do it? Like, why doesn't he just get on it? Well, because that's not how you innovate. So you're going to do it in different ways. I'm like, why is he always mentioning these random stories and connecting them to what we're talking about? Well, that's because that's how you innovate. So when I look at teams, what I try to understand is, do they have a somewhat balanced wheel of all the different styles of innovators? Because when you do, you create incredibly strong thinking. You tap the power of the diversity of thinking. The reality is, ideas that come from a birds of a feather tend to die, right? Ideas that come from diversity of thinking tend to thrive. But it comes when you think about that, it's not just checking off the boxes of who you have. It goes back to exactly what you were talking about, which is understanding your people and how they do their best and how they contribute.
As you're talking, I start thinking about that child. I mean, think about it from this perspective. Is that young child that is not captured the vocabulary yet. They know what they want, but they can't verbalize it. And so for me, when I start thinking about these skills and all of what you're talking about, I think one of our frustrations with the ability to creatively think and innovate is that we're unable to understand this in scope, as well as how do we apply it? And so therefore it just comes out as frustration. Just do it, right?
Yeah, totally. And when they do it differently, we don't recognize it as innovation. That's the other. And I have, without a doubt, in my early years, fallen into that trap when they didn't present it to me or do it in a way that I recognize as innovation in my brain. I get even more frustrated because I'm like, well, why don't you just do it the way this is how I would do it? And what our research and what all this, the IQE understanding that really helps us realize is how to recognize that and have that. It's a common language, right? And a communication that you can have. And I think, you had mentioned earlier, I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent, but I think it relates about like change is hard. A lot in our book, in Innovation is Everybody's Business, we dedicate a lot of time to understanding our primal brain and our reticular activating system, because it really is important to not just understand that your team innovates, but to understand ourselves and why sometimes while we have this innovative tool, we also sometimes resist it on this subconscious level and don't even realize what we're doing.
Yeah. And so what we can, for me, we see that into, when we flip it into, it's not that I, won't do it. I say I can't do it. I don't attempt it.
Totally different.
Yeah. Very different. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about, there's actually multiple paths and pathways and viewpoints that we need to take when we innovate. And you talk about 5. And to me, first of all, this framework that you have, this system that you have, the IQE, I mean, to me, I think it brings this so much closer to reality for everybody. You talk about everybody's business. You have the ability to make that happen. And I really appreciate your work. I want to make sure I get that out. But you talk about these 5 things that we have to look at. If you could, please talk about those and why that's important.
So, and let me preface this with a story and tell you that this is an exercise I often do with clients. And I had a client, there's a visual that goes with it. And I had a client that emailed me, 3 months later, excuse me, and said, I just want to let you know, Tamara, I kept that PowerPoint slide where you had the visual of this exercise on the wall of my office. Oh my God, excuse me. I have this visual on my wall of my office because I just want to always be reminded to look more than one way. So the challenge we face, and we've all been there, is we want to solve a problem. We want to find an opportunity, whatever it is, and we take one path, right? One lane. The reality is that leads to one answer. And I know you're really big on that kind of divergent thinking and then bringing it back. That's what this allows us to do. So let me talk a little bit about them. And one of them is actually a little bit surprising, which I love. So there's let's use an example. Let's use a bottle of water as our example. So we've got a problem. We need to create new products for this bottle of water to be in the marketplace. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to improve that bottle of water, right? What can we do to make it better? Maybe it is self-controlled temperature, or maybe it has a no-spill lid, right? Like something that's just an incremental improvement. So we're going to get all that captured. Then we're going to move to create, meaning what else could we do with that bottle of water? If it wasn't for drinking, what else could we do? We could water plants. We could use it as a prism through the window when the sun comes in. I'm making this up as I go, so some of them might sound a little weird, but you get the point, right? So now we've got improve ideas, we've got create ideas. Now we're going to go to transform, meaning what else could be a bottle of water if you didn't have your structure? What else could do that? A wine bottle could act as a spoon. So now you're bringing those ideas in. Then we're going to, where am I? I'm on the 5th one, right? Yes. Oh, disrupt. So wild. Yeah, yeah. So that's like, what is the wildest, craziest possible thing you could do with this bottle of water, right? It could have some kind of thing in it where you turn it upside down and it never, ever, ever spills. Like, it is the safest bottle out there. It can go to space. It's got space dust inside of it. It's amazing. The last one, and this is the one that surprises people, is make it worse. And here's why. So let's say we made a bottle of water worse. Well, what would we do? The water would be dirty. Right? Like something that we couldn't drink. It would have toxins in it. It would have holes in the bottom. But then you say, okay, well, now that it's worse, what would I do with it? Oh, well, that would be an amazing waterfall structure. I could use that to water my plants. I could actually grow strawberries with a drip system in my yard. So that is kind of a wild example across. But the point of all that is now I'm not just down one lane, but I've gone down 5 different lanes and I've got a wealth of ideas. And what we find with clients is when they do this, it allows them to then pull the best of the best. So one of the worst things we can do in innovation when we're trying to come up with some new solution idea, and whether that's for internal workflow or a product or service, is have one thing that we have to fall in love with, right? We want 50, we want 100, we want quantity first. And then quality. The beauty is now I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a piece of this. I'm going to take a little bit of this no spill, a little bit of this tighter cap over here, and a little bit of this water changing colors over here, put them together and have an even better idea. So I've seen it time and time again. And on top of that, the last thing I'll say about it is, as you can probably already guess, the improve exercise really gets the tweakers out because they're like, oh, I know how to do that. The disrupt, the people who are imaginative, who play in the gaps, it really resonates with them. So not only you're going down multiple paths, but you're tapping all the different type of people in the room, or yourself too.
So at that and this is the thing where you talk about, even in positive psychology, they talk about being able to be matched up with unlikely pairs and to be able to bring out those different perspectives. And you have to do it in an environment that's safe. That's part of the culture. And I don't want to go down that path. I mean, because I think your foundational elements that we're talking about here are more important. Those other things can be communicated by anybody who's doing the type of work you're doing. I think what you have is so unique. And you talked about the whole divergent and convergent thinking thing. And those who've actually been listening to the Fast Leader Legion, they've heard me talk about that a lot. But I like the way that you put it. Because, I mean, it's just really simple layman's terms. It's that you have to separate the activities of creation and innovation from the analysis. And that's, to me, I think you and I had talked before we got on the show, and I think that's where 99% of failure happens. It's right there.
Totally. Yeah, it's right. So here's what happens. We try to judge as we try to innovate. And the minute we do that, we shut ourselves down, right? We're not giving ourselves permission. It sounds too crazy. That little primal lizard brain on your shoulder, speaks up and is like, don't do it. That's not a good idea. There's a reason it's never been done, right? So I call mine Bernard, by the way. I like to name him because then I can talk to him and be like, get away, Bernard, not today. But that's what happens. So here's the deal. Our brain actually, and I talked to some neuroscientists about this, our brain cannot innovate and analyze or judge at the same time. And it's impossible. And that's why we end up with this kind of BS incremental results when we try to innovate. But here's the thing. It's actually really easy to get over this hurdle. So let me just share one simple way that you can do by yourself with a team in 10 minutes, in 5 hours. It is so easy. All you have to do is say to yourself or the group, hey guys, let's say we have an hour. Hey guys, we're going to spend 40 minutes being wild and free. We're going to innovate. I'm not saying we're getting rid of our realities that we face, but we're just going to, anything goes, no judgment. We're getting it all out there. Then we're going to spend the last 20 minutes analyzing, voting, assessing, and figuring it out. It does 2 things. One is it puts people at ease, right? Gives them permission to be more innovative. But it also shuts down the primal brain, which is over there wanting to judge and keep you safe and shut you down, because that little Bernard on my shoulder goes, oh, okay, we're going to get to that. I'm not going to worry now. I'm not going to judge too much now. I'll worry about that in the last 20 minutes. So it gives us an incredible permission, but it's fascinating to me because you'll hear it all the time, right? I'm sure you see it. People go, well, what if we did this? Never mind. That's actually, now that I say that out loud, it's horrible. And you're thinking, well, hold on, there's a nugget there. Like, it may not be the right idea. Not every idea is the right idea, but let's explore that. But people shut themselves down. It's incredible. And I used to do it too. Like, I get it. But I think the research shows that if we just give ourselves a little bit of permission, we'll get to an incredible amount of quantity. There was this really interesting study I recently read about a photography class. Have you seen this?
I have not.
It's really cool. So the professor split the class in half. Half the class got graded on quantity, like just number of photos submitted. The other half got graded on quality, the perfect photo. So as you can imagine, the group that was given the quantity came up with the most brilliant photos, actually got higher grades than the ones that were super worried about the right photo, right? Because they were analyzing and judging all the time, where this group was free to experiment and play and test. So quantity first, innovation first, judging later.
Well, and part of that too is, talking about gamifying and gamification of this whole process. You even talk about, playing around with words, having word games. Tell us a little bit about that.
So this is what I'd say one of our communities and everyday innovators, as we call them, because for us, right, it's everyday people like you and me. It's not just the Steve Jobs. In fact, I'll just tell you, in the book, we don't even talk about Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. Like, I reference them to say that I'm not talking about them, and that's it, because they're amazing. They're genius, but they're not us. I want us to have innovation. So here's the beauty of word games. And it's the same, it has the same kind of philosophy as the look all ways we were just talking about. Here's what happens. So Jim, give me a challenge to solve. Like, just give me a question, like, how do I, whatever, like something your listeners would be thinking about.
How do I move to remote?
How do I move to remote? Okay, something we are all thinking about right now. And hopefully we can have a chance to talk about innovation in crisis, because we are all on lockdown in the middle of one. How do I move to remote? So great question. Here's the thing though, if that's the only question we try to answer, again, we're going to go down one path and answer it one way. So I like to play Madlibs with the questions I ask, and I like to answer all the questions. So instead of how do I move to remote, I might say, how do I leverage remote? That takes me to a whole different path of thinking, right? Again, it opens up that lens to give you more ideas and more thinking. How do I minimize remote? Like, you can flip it in a lot of different ways. What we find is that when we do that, right, we expand our thinking so much. I mean, we always start a little narrow, and that's okay, right? That's human nature. And then we go expand and expand. And I think it is unrealistic to think that we're going to suddenly leap into the disruptive solution, right? We got to start here and work our way out. And that's okay. But playing word games, simple Madlibs, can give you whole new ways of thinking about things. And all you have to do is change one, maybe two words in a sentence, and you get there. Because, the thing I always found frustrating is innovation experts would say, your solutions are only good as your questions. And I was in the audience like, well, what questions am I supposed to ask? Like, how am I supposed to ask the right questions? This gives you an easy way to get to those questions, because you're just changing the perspective a little bit every time.
So for me, when I start thinking about those word plays, those examples, I mean, to me, I start thinking that, okay, I need to start doing a running list and create and have a bunch of these that I just continue to cycle through and continually refer back to and grow, because just like you were saying is, I mean, we get in a particular habit, and if we ask a particular question, we get an answer, and that leads to success. That's the only question we keep asking.
Right. That's right. And, just like the other exercise, as you can imagine, certain words resonate with certain types of innovators and styles. So for me, like, how do I move? How do I leap? I'm like, yes, let's figure that out. Right. So for me, that resonates. But for someone who's instinctual, it might be like, how do I flow into, right? The words can actually help unlock different people. But to your point, we have a toolkit online, an innovation toolkit that's actually a connection to the assessment. So you can put it into practice. And we have a whole list of words for you to play with on there, because you just got to get the brain going a little bit. And to your point, just have a running list of words that you can always kind of move in and out of.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure that we put a link to that on your show notes page. Okay, so we talked about the individual impact, the individual doing different, us leading them in a different way. And it's, again, this is everybody's responsibility and role. This is why we're talking about it, and it's so important. And you make it, to me, it's just like, hey, I think everybody can grasp on to what you're talking about and get this turn this from a concept and a theory into a practical application, which is so vital. Because most people talk about, oh, hey, you need to innovate, and this is how you go about it. This is how the brain works. This is how team dynamics work. This is how, this, that, and the other. But it's like, no.
And it's this big, like, fluffy, subjective thing. And you're like, well, how am I supposed to do that?
Exactly. But we need to have the right environment. It needs to thrive, right? So what are some of the behaviors? You talk a lot about behaviors. Is that we need to make sure that are vitally important that we have in place.
So let me share with you an experience I had that really brings this part to life about how to think about behaviors, because I'm a big fan of, and what I've seen in my experience is that rewarding behaviors that you want to drive innovation, that's how you drive culture and innovation, not the outcomes. Because we get stuck on the outcomes, don't we? Like, it's success on, cake on Friday or the failure shelf. That's kind of what we do. So a while back, I was running this innovation consulting team. There's about 25 of us. And I was the vice president, and I needed to figure out how to solve some business challenges. But I knew that my perspective was not the only perspective I needed to figure this out. What I really needed was to get everybody's opinion, right? From our frontline receptionist to our junior consultants. I needed everybody. So I went out, we had an open office space for most of them. And I said, hey, I really need some help. This is the challenge. I'm going to put it up on the wall. And this was before, cool collaboration technology. So, just give me a sticky note with your idea on it. Just stick it in the box of my desk or just email me, whatever. So of course, the three people who were always going to give me the ideas gave me ideas. And I'm reading through them and I'm like, okay, these are great, but I need more. I need more from more people. So I'm thinking to myself, how do I do this? So I walk out, and I go, hey, everyone, I just want to thank Mindy. She gave me this idea to blah, blah, blah. That was a really great idea. Thank you. Looking forward to the rest. Same result the next week. And I'm like, well, but I said something about the outcome, right? Not the behavior I was looking for. So I was getting really frustrated. So I was like, all right, I got to change gears. So I went to the coffee shop. I got a bunch of gift cards. And the next day I went into the pit in the office, and I loudly said about this guy, Ed, who had submitted some ideas like 2 minutes prior. I came running out of my office. I must have looked crazy. And I said at the top of my lungs, so everybody could hear me, hey, everyone, I just wanted to say thank you to Ed for submitting ideas. I got a gift card for you. I don't even know what you wrote. I haven't even looked yet. I'm just so thrilled that you took the time and were thoughtful enough to give me your feedback. So thank you. Gave him the card and walked away. Sure enough, over the next week, everybody participated and gave me multiple ideas, and we solved the challenge. And what I learned in that experience was, if you want innovation, you got to figure out the behaviors that are going to get you there. The outcomes are going to happen no matter what. So things like submitting ideas, things like one of the ones that we reward heavily in my company is conflict, disagreeing. Because we know that leads to innovation, done in a healthy way, of course, but that's a big part of innovation, right? So we reward that. For the people on my team who are inquisitives, by the way, which are people who innovate by asking questions, they tend to dig deep and pull back the layers of the onion. I reward them for asking those questions. So you can reward people based on their style of innovation, but I'd say the overall takeaway that's important to understand is figure out the top 5 behaviors that are going to drive innovation with your team and reward them regardless of the outcome before the outcome even happens. So if collaboration is big, I'm going to reward you, Jim, for collaborating with someone when you got nothing out of it, right? Just helping the other team member. I'm going to reward you for taking a risk or speaking up with a new idea. When we reward behaviors, we get more of what we're looking for. It's like dogs and kids, right? I have both. You reward behaviors. Same thing with adults. We're no different.
Well, so normally on the show, we ask people about their hump story, but I think you just gave it, talking about going through the transition. So thank you. However, when we start looking at all of this, it can be so daunting that we need, really inspiration, and we look for it a lot of different ways. But on the show, we absolutely put a spotlight on quotes because they can do that for us. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
Yeah. So the one that I love the most, it's too long to say, is the man in the arena. Like, that to me is probably, I know everybody loves it, right? To me, it's on my wall, actually. I that's the thing I look to, and I'm like, I'm not in it. I'm not in it, or I'm feeling like, am I doing enough, or am I really, going after it? I love that quote. The one that I put in the book that I love is Dolly Parton, who is the bomb diggity. And she said, figure out who you are and do it on purpose. And I thought that was brilliant. And obviously it relates to like, understand how you innovate. That's your greatest value and contribution, and do it on purpose. And to me, that was amazing.
And with that quote and what you just said in that, again, I want to emphasize just the enormity of need in regards to people understanding and improving their IQE, how important that is in today's world. To me, it was a situation with this whole COVID-19 is that people were thrust, into change that they may have thought about, and say, oh yeah, we're working on it, or we'll get to it. It's like, boom, I don't have a choice. It's now or die. And then also having to innovate in ways that they never even imagined. However, there's a lot of risks when you get thrust into the need. And we talked about, the whole crisis issue and innovating in crisis and potential pitfalls. And I think that's important for us to explore. So can you give us some of your perspectives and innovating during times of crisis and what we need to be aware of?
Yeah. And let me just say, it is what we are dealing with right now is unprecedented, because not only has our economy come to a screeching halt, and the rug been pulled out from under us for a lot of us in business. It has for me as well. But we're also dealing with this health scare too, right? Like all kind of wrapped into one. And I'd say that people are, their mental bandwidth is stretched thinner than it's ever been. So, if your bandwidth is like I like to think of it, your energy is like the Wi-Fi in your house, right? And when every device is on, everything slows down. So I think that's what we're dealing with. It was interesting. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they said, Tamara, I don't understand, like, how am I supposed to innovate when all I can think is survival and getting through the day? And I get it. And my response back is, right now more than ever, and I think you kind of said in a different way, innovation is survival. We don't have a choice. So, and that's not just from a business perspective, not just if you own a restaurant, but also if you're an employee, right? You have to figure out how you add value and how you contribute and how you can look at your job in a different way, how to solve problems in a different way, how to unearth new opportunities that maybe didn't exist before. And I think we really get stuck into this trap of just keep my head down, just get into survival mode, just get through this. Or the other trap that I see a lot of is, and I just wrote a blog about this, is I can't wait for us to get back to normal. There's no normal coming back. Like, this is not about when the quarantine's over, we're all going to run out of our houses and it's going to be business as usual. This is going to shift everything. I was having a conversation with a gentleman who owns a company. They have 3 floors in a building in San Francisco. And I said, how's remote working going? And he said, Tamara, here's the interesting part. He said, it's frustrating. There's some things that we're learning. He said, but I've also realized, I don't know that I need 3 floors of real estate. There's bloat in my people, in my real estate, in our workflow that we've stripped away because we've been forced to, but it's actually been an opportunity. So I'm hearing that, and I'm, my innovation, I'm like salivating because that's what I do for a living. But I'm also thinking, hold on, if I'm an employee, I better make sure that I am vital, that I am providing innovative solutions, because all business owners right now at Fortune 100 or small mom and pop are going, what do I really need to be successful here? And how is this going to shift how we do things? So, it is frightening and it's scary on one hand, yet on the other hand, it is an incredible opportunity to turn uncertainty into innovation. But we've really got to be focused on doing that and leading in that way and giving our people permission to be innovative. Because here's the other thing I'd say for those of us that are leaders, we have permission to change and innovate now in a way we didn't have before with our employees and our customers. They will give us more slack and forgiveness for getting it wrong because they're going through it too. And we should absolutely take advantage of that right now and try and adjust and fail and succeed, because we're all in this together. But now's the time, right? And I think what we'll see in, let's call it 6-8 weeks, who knows, right? I can't predict when this is really going to lift and we're going to kind of go back to work, but it'll be interesting to see. I think the ones that get stuck in survival and inaction from a person perspective, leader in a company perspective, are the ones that are going to have a real problem on the other side. I think the ones that are in the trenches innovating and figuring it out are the ones that we're going to see stronger on the other side.
Well, and I appreciate you helping us through all of those positive transitions. And Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Tamara, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Tamara Ghandour, are you ready to hoe down?
I think so. I'm a little nervous, but I'm there. I'm ready.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I think what's holding me back is actually mental energy and making sure that I stay focused on the right things versus feeling like I need to get stretched when there's so much I could be doing right now.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Tap the power of the diversity on your team. Don't try to make them be like you.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Oh, well, I think you said in my intro, I have this funny thing about the rules. You can follow them, but I'm not going to.
And what do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Oh, like a resource?
Sure.
Yeah. So Basecamp, we love Basecamp at our company. It helps us stay just connected and organized.
And what would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion? It can be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to Innovation is Everybody's Business on your show notes page as well.
So one of my other favorites is called The Big Leap by, I think it's Guy, now I can't remember his last name, but I loved it. It's all about breaking through your upper limits, and it's fantastic. I'm sure we'll get the link right in the show notes, but one of my favorite books.
Yes, we will. And okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Tamara Ghandour. Okay, Tamara, this is my last Hold On question. Imagine you've been given the opportunity to go back to the age 25 and you can take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
I would take back confidence. I think in my early 20s, I was hesitant to take some of the risks I could have taken or speak up when I should have spoken up because I was junior. I didn't know. I was in my 20s. I didn't have the experience. But the truth is, at all ages and all different types of people, we all have something really valuable to give. And I wish I had known that then.
Tamara, I had fun with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yeah, so you can buy the book on Amazon, of course. Innovation is Everybody's Business. And you can take the assessment and find everything else at our website, go-to-launchstreet.com, all one word.
Tamara Ghandour, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.